You want to know what really scares a narcissist. It's not yelling. It's not calling them out. It's not even exposing their lies. No, what terrifies them is the moment you wake up, take your power back, and say one sentence that they never saw coming. Because the second you say it, their control is gone, their game is over, and you're finally free. Let's talk about that sentence and why it works. You know what nobody tells you, that the most dangerous thing about a narcissist isn't how loud they are, or how charming they can be, or even how much damage they cause. It's how invisible the manipulation is while it's happening. One day you're in this relationship, could be romantic, family, work, and you think, how did I get here? You're second, guessing yourself, questioning your worth, and somehow feeling like you are the one who's always at fault. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. Narcissists aren't looking for love, connection, or mutual respect. They are looking for control, period. They want emotional power. They want your energy, your time, your reactions, your attention, all of it. Because the moment you give them that, they feel powerful, and when they feel powerful, they feel safe. It's never about you. It's about what you give them access to, your vulnerability, yourself. Doubt? Your empathy, that's what they feed on. Now maybe you're sitting there thinking, wait, but I loved this person. I trusted them. I tried everything, exactly. You showed up as a genuine human being. You were honest. You explained yourself. You gave second chances. You communicated. But here's the brutal truth. Narcissists don't care about your explanations. They care about your submission. They don't care about the truth unless it helps them twist it. They don't care about your feelings unless they can use them against you. And the worst part, the more you try to fix things, the more they win. Because every time you step into that ring, they know they've still got you dancing to their tune. Let me be clear, this is not your fault. You are not weak for wanting to believe in someone. You are not foolish for hoping that they would change. You are not broken because you got hurt. What you are is human. You have empathy, you feel deeply, you give people chances, and that's something to be proud of, not ashamed of. But now it's time to get your power back, and it starts by understanding this. A narcissist doesn't want a relationship, they want a performance. They want the applause, they want to play the victim, they want to rewrite history, and they want you to play along. But guess what? You don't have to, because here's what terrifies a narcissist more than anything: the moment you see through the act. The moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you realize that love does not require constant pain, confusion, or chaos, the moment you understand they are not confused, they are calculated, they know exactly what they're doing when they provoke you. When they ghost you, when they compliment you and insult you in the same breath, when they twist your words, it's all part of the pattern, and the pattern only works if you stay on the stage. So you want to shake them to their core. You want to make a narcissist fear you forever. Don't scream, don't beg, don't try to expose them. Just stop participating, stop reacting, detach, go silent. And then when they come crawling back, because they always do, look them in the eye and say the sentence that shatters their illusion of control. I don't need you and I never did. That's it. That's the sentence. Say it and mean it, because in that one sentence you are doing something powerful. You are taking the oxygen out of the room. You are cutting the cord. You are telling the truth, not for them, but for you. You're acknowledging that you were never broken. You were never beneath them. You were never powerless. You were just stuck in a cycle, and now you've woken up. When you say, I don't need you and I never did, you're telling them the night, where they've tried to silence, you were always whole. You just forgot. You forgot because they needed you to forget. They needed you to shrink, to doubt yourself, to keep proving your worth. Because if you ever remembered how strong you actually are, the game would end. And for them, that's terrifying. Narcissists live for the drama, but they fear accountability. They crave control, but they dread indifference. They manipulate emotions, but they collapse in the face of boundaries. They can handle a fight. What they can't handle is your silence. They can handle blame. What they can't handle is your clarity. They can handle your pain. What they can't handle is your power. And here's the good news. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you reclaim your energy, your self-respect, your identity, they can't touch you. It doesn't matter what tricks they try, how sweet they sound, or how many promises they make. You'll know it's a script. You'll know it's bait, and you'll have the strength to walk away and never look back. You're not cold for setting boundaries. You're not cruel for protecting your peace. You're not selfish for choosing yourself. You are finally healing. You are finally saying enough, and that scares the hell out of them. Because the truth is, they never had real power. They only had the power you gave them, and now, that power is yours again. So the next time a narcissist tries to pull you back into the chaos, the confusion, the cycle, remember that one sentence. Say it, breathe it, own it. I don't need you and I never did. And walk away. Because freedom doesn't start when they change, it starts when you do. You want to know the fastest way to disarm a narcissist? Stop reacting, stop explaining, stop feeding them what they crave most, your energy. Because narcissists aren't driven by love, connection, or even respect. They are driven by one thing, attention. Positive, negative, it doesn't matter. As long as you're giving them your focus, they are winning. And the moment you go silent, the moment you stop engaging, is the moment they start to panic. Because now they're not in control. Now they can't read you. Now their power source has disappeared. That's why silence terrifies them. Not because it's passive, not because you've given up, but because it means you've woken up. You've stopped playing the game. You're no longer trapped in the cycle of defending yourself, proving your worth, or reacting to every bait they throw at you. And they can't stand it, because a narcissist only feels powerful when you're unstable, emotional, or confused. But when you stop talking, stop explaining, stop justifying, you become unpredictable. And unpredictable means untouchable. Let's be real. They trained you to respond. They conditioned you to explain yourself, to try harder, to fix things that were never your responsibility in the first place. And you did it because you cared, because you wanted to make it work, because you're human. But here's the thing. Narcissists don't want resolution. They want reaction. They want to poke the wound and watch you bleed. And when you stop bleeding for them, they lose interest. Your silence is more than just a lack of words. It's a refusal to be manipulated. It's a power move. Now don't confuse silence with giving the silent treatment. That's what they do as punishment. They withhold affection, attention, or communication to control you. Your silence is different. It's not a weapon. It's a boundary. It says, I'm not playing anymore. It says, you don't get access to me unless it's healthy, respectful, and mutual. It's you reclaiming your dignity without raising your voice. It's walking away with your head held high while they scramble for control. They'll try to get you back. Oh, they always try. They'll provoke you, insult you. They'll suddenly apologize, suddenly play the victim, suddenly remember all the things you ever wanted to hear. That's not remorse, that's strategy. They don't miss you. They miss controlling you. They don't regret hurting you. They regret losing the access they had to your emotions. And when you stay quiet, when you stay grounded, they have no script, no angle, no control. You see, silence forces a narcissist to face themselves, and they can't do that. That's why they keep the chaos going, because in the noise, in the arguments, in the confusion, they get to avoid accountability. But when you go silent, there's nowhere to hide. Now they're left alone with their emptiness, their lies, their shame. And they'll do anything to avoid that mirror. That's why they come back. That's why they hoover, not because they love you, but because they hate losing control of you. And listen, I get it. Going silent doesn't feel easy. Especially when they're smearing your name, twisting the story, or trying to make you look like the villain. Your instinct is to speak up, defend yourself, make them see the truth. But here's the hard truth. They already know the truth. They just don't care. You defending yourself won't change them. It will only exhaust you, and you don't owe them your exhaustion anymore. Your peace is not negotiable. Your energy is not a currency to be spent on people who only take. And silence. That's how you protect both. You walk away, you block, you unfollow, you move on, not because you're weak, but because you finally realize what strength really looks like, and it looks like not engaging. There is something incredibly powerful about being unbothered. When they can't get a rise out of you, when they can't bait you into defending yourself, when they throw drama your way and it lands on silence, that's when you've won. Not because you beat them at their game, but because you stopped playing it altogether. And here's something else they'll never admit. Your silence makes them insecure. It makes them doubt their grip. They wonder who else you're talking to. They wonder what you're thinking. They wonder why you're so calm. And most of all, they wonder if you've finally figured out who they really are. Because narcissists know the moment you truly see them, the illusion crumbles. And when that illusion shatters, they know they can't get back in. Your silence says more than words ever could. It says, I know my worth now. It says, I'm not entertaining this dysfunction anymore. It says, your chaos no longer has a seat at my table. And that kind of clarity, that kind of detachment, that's terrifying to someone who only knows how to manipulate confusion. They can gaslight a reaction. They can't gaslight silence. So if you're sitting there wondering if going silent is the right move, it is. Not as revenge, not as a tactic, but as self-respect, as healing, as closure. And not the kind of closure they give you with fake apologies and empty promises, real closure. The kind you give yourself when you decide that your peace is more important than their approval. You don't need to explain why you left. You don't need to break down everything they did. You don't need to write a letter or get one last word in. You just need to go quiet and trust that silence speaks volumes. You want to be free, then stop feeding the fire, stop dancing with dysfunction, stop handing your voice to people who only ever wanted to use it against you. Be still, be silent, and in that silence, watch your strength return. Because the truth is, a narcissist can handle drama, they can handle confrontation, they can even handle hate. But what they can't handle is the moment you go quiet, rebuild yourself, and never look back. That silence, that's power. There's one sentence that ends the game, cuts through the manipulation, and flips the power dynamic instantly. One sentence that hits so hard, so deep, that it stays with a narcissist forever. It doesn't yell, it doesn't insult, it doesn't explain. It simply tells the truth, the kind of truth that pulls the rug right out from under them, and the sentence is this: I don't need you and I never did. That's it. That's the one. And if you mean it, if you own it, if you let that truth settle into your bones, you become the one thing a narcissist fears most untouchable. See, the entire illusion that a narcissist builds depends on one thing: convincing you that you need them. That without them you're not enough, that they are the key to your happiness, your success, your identity, and they don't do it all at once. No, they chip away slowly, they praise you, then criticize you. They build you up, then knock you down. They create just enough emotional chaos that you start looking to them for peace, the very peace they keep stealing from you. That's how the trap works. They build a version of you that only functions around them. And you don't even realize it's happening until one day you're exhausted, confused, and wondering when exactly you started needing permission to feel okay. That's why that one sentence is so powerful. Because it breaks the trance, it reminds you of who you were before they twisted your reality, and it reminds them that their control was always an illusion. When you say, I don't need you and I never did, what you're really saying is, I see it now. I see the manipulation, I see the emotional games, I see the lies, the gaslighting, the fake apologies, the blame. Shifting, I see all of it, and now that I do, I'm not angry, I'm done, and here's the key: you're not saying it to get a reaction. You're not saying it to hurt them, you're saying it because it's the truth, you're saying it for yourself, because there is something incredibly liberating about realizing that the person who once made you feel small no longer has that power. You don't need their validation. You don't need their love, especially when that love always came with conditions, threats, silence, or shame. You don't need their version of the story, their version of who you are, or their version of the truth. And you certainly don't need their permission to walk away. You might think, but I did need them. I depended on them. No, you didn't. What you needed was support. What you needed was safety. What you needed was love, honesty, and consistency. And you tried to find that in someone who used your needs as leverage. They didn't meet your needs, they weaponized them. That's not need, that's survival mode, and now you're not surviving, you're waking up. And you're realizing that everything you thought they provided, peace, protection, love you can give yourself. When a narcissist hears that sentence, really hears it, they panic, because it unravels their entire script. You were never supposed to realize your worth. You were supposed to stay hooked explaining, defending, apologizing, hoping. You were supposed to believe they were the prize, but now you see that the prize was always you. Your loyalty, your strength, your kindness, your effort, and they blew it. They lost access to something powerful, and they know it. That's why they'll try to flip it. The moment you say it, they'll accuse you of being cold, of being the narcissist, of being ungrateful, selfish, cruel. Don't fall for it. That's just noise. That's just a scared person trying to pull you back into the game they were winning. Don't explain yourself. Don't justify it. You said what you said, and if it hits hard, it's because it's real. That's the thing about the truth. It doesn't always feel good, but it always sets you free, and it will set them spinning. Because they can't argue with detachment. They can't twist your silence. They can't gaslight the calm confidence in your voice when you say, "I don't need you and I never did." It forces them to face the thing they fear most, that their control was never real. That you were never broken, that you were just temporarily convinced you were. There's no need for a dramatic exit, no need for fireworks, just clarity, just truth. That sentence, it's a closing door. And you're not slamming it, you're locking it for good. You're saying, "I'm not coming back, not because I hate you, not because I want revenge, but because I've grown, I've healed, and I finally know what healthy looks like." And this chaos, this control, this manipulation, this was never love. You're not bitter, you're better, you're not heartless. You just have boundaries now, and that's something they'll never understand. Because they feed on people who don't know how to say no. But you do now, and not just with words, with actions, with distance, with silence, with peace. So if you're wondering whether that one sentence is too harsh, let me tell you it's not. It's necessary, it's healing, and it's real, because if you're saying it, it means you've finally seen the truth. It means you've reconnected with your power. It means you've stopped looking backward and started choosing yourself. And that is the most terrifying thing in the world to someone who only had power when you were lost. So say it. Say it softly. Say it with strength. Say it to yourself if you have to. "I don't need you and I never did." And let that truth carry you forward. Not with anger, not with vengeance, but with peace, because once you realize you don't need them, not now, not ever, they lose the grip, and you get your life back. There's something you need to hear, something that will change how you see every toxic encounter you've ever had. Control only works when you react. Read that again. Say it out loud. Let it sink in. Control only works when you react. That's it. That's the secret. That's the entire power dynamic exposed in one truth. The moment you understand this, everything starts to shift. Because you realize that the person who seemed so powerful, so intimidating, so in control, they only had that power because you kept giving them access to your emotions, your energy, your voice, your attention, and now you don't have to anymore. Here's what narcissists do. They press buttons. They know exactly what to say to provoke you. They remember your insecurities, your fears, the things that make you feel not enough, and they'll wrap their words in a smile or lace them with guilt. Sometimes they'll come at you with anger, other times with charm, but the goal is always the same, to get a reaction. Because when you react, they know they still own a piece of you. It means their words still matter to you, that they still have space in your head, your heart, your life. That's where their control lives, not in what they say, but in how you respond. And let me be clear, wanting to respond doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Of course you want to defend yourself when someone lies about you. Of course you want to explain when someone twists your words. Of course you want to react when someone disrespects you, manipulates you, gaslights you. That impulse is natural, but here's where your power lies, not in the reaction, but in the pause, in the ability to choose what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Because the truth is, not everything deserves a response. Not every insult needs a comeback. Not every lie needs correcting. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing, not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself more. You care about your peace, your mental clarity, your boundaries, and narcissists, they don't know what to do with that. They're used to chaos, they create it, feed off it, live in it, but silence, detachment. Calm, that unnerves them because they can't read you anymore. They can't use your reaction to control the narrative. They'll ramp it up when you stop reacting. That's the pattern. You go quiet and they panic. They poke harder, they test your limits, they push more buttons. Why? Because they're looking for proof that you still care, that you're still caught in the web, that they still matter. And if you break, if you explode, if you cry or chase or try to explain, they win. Not because they were right, but because they proved they could still pull the strings. But what happens when you don't break, when you pause instead of react? When you breathe instead of scream, when you walk away instead of arguing, everything shifts. Now you are in control. Now you decide where your energy goes. Now you are setting the rules, and that terrifies someone who built their identity on being able to manipulate yours. They'll call you cold. They'll say you're acting superior. They'll accuse you of doing what they've always done. Let them. That's not your burden to carry. That's projection, not truth, because they're not reacting to your silence. They're reacting to your growth. You've stopped being available for the drama, and now they're desperate. Because here's the thing, the more emotionally regulated you become, the more emotionally irrelevant they become. Control is a performance. It's smoke and mirrors, the yelling, the gaslighting, the guilt, tripping, the passive-aggressive texts, the sudden silence. It's all designed to make you feel like they are the center of the story. But when you stop reacting, you stop making them the main character. And you start reclaiming the story as your own. You start remembering that you get to decide what deserves a place in your mind. You start realizing that peace is something you choose, not something someone else gives you. You stop living in emotional survival mode and you start thriving in clarity. And let's be honest, they'll hate that. They'll hate seeing you unbothered. They'll hate watching you build a life that doesn't include them. They'll hate knowing that they no longer control the way you see yourself, but that's not your problem. That's not your job to fix, because your job is not to make them comfortable with your growth. Your job is to get free. And freedom requires discipline. It requires pausing. It requires choosing peace over performance. So next time they send that message that sounds like bait, pause. Next time they drop a comment that feels like a slap in the face, pause. Next time they act sweet just to pull you back in, pause. And in that pause, remember, control only works when you react. They don't own you. They never did. They only own the version of you that didn't know how powerful your silence really was. Now you do. Now you know that your energy is valuable, that your peace is sacred, that your attention is a currency, and not everyone deserves to spend it. Now you know that calm is not weakness, it's power. That boundaries are not walls, they're freedom, and that you don't have to explain yourself to someone who is never listening in the first place. So hold your ground, stay calm, let them spin, let them guess. Let them scream into the void, but don't give them what they're looking for. Don't give them your reaction, give them your silence, give them your exit, give them your peace, because the game ends the moment you stop playing it. And the control, it vanishes the second you realize you were never powerless, you just forgot you had a choice. And now, you remember, there comes a moment when everything clicks when the noise stops. When the confusion clears, when the endless cycle of defending yourself, second, guessing yourself, chasing clarity finally ends, and it ends the second you do one thing, stand in your truth, not the version of truth they forced on you. Not the story they told others, not the twisted narrative they used to control you, your truth, the truth you always knew deep down but maybe weren't ready to claim yet, because when you stand in truth, really stand in it, they lose all leverage. They lose their grip, their power, their illusion of control, because now you can see them clearly and you're no longer afraid. The reason narcissists fight so hard to manipulate the story is because they know one thing. If you ever stood fully in your truth, their lies wouldn't survive it. That's why they gaslight. That's why they flip the script. That's why they always play the victim, because if you ever trusted your own reality more than you trusted their words, it's game over. And once you reclaim your reality, they can't touch you. They can call you names, they can tell people stories, they can throw everything at you, but it bounces off, because you're not playing their game anymore. You're standing still, grounded, rooted in truth. And they can't move you. Think about it. The entire power dynamic only works when you doubt yourself. That's the real tool they use, not anger, not charm, doubt. If they can get you to question your memory, your emotions, your worth, they win. Because doubt is destabilizing. Doubt keeps you reaching out for answers. Doubt keeps you explaining yourself over and over again. And if you're stuck explaining, you're not healing, you're not leaving. You're not rebuilding. You're stuck spinning, doubting, reacting. That's what they want. But truth cuts through all of it. Truth says, I remember what happened. I know what I felt. I trust my experience, and I don't need your permission to believe it. That's when the healing begins. That's when the power shifts, because you stop needing their version of closure. You stop needing their apology. You stop needing them to admit anything, because you already know you know, and that knowing becomes your foundation. Solid, unshakable, untouchable, they'll try to shake it. They always do. They'll bring up the past. They'll accuse you of being too sensitive, too emotional, too unforgiving. They'll say you're lying. Or that it wasn't that bad, or that you're remembering it wrong. That's not truth, that's control disguised as conversation. Don't fall for it. You don't owe anyone a debate about your truth. You don't owe anyone a perfectly packaged explanation. You don't need to convince anyone to believe you. You're not here to be understood by the people who chose to misunderstand you. You're here to be free, and freedom lives in truth. In the quiet, steady voice inside you that says, this is what I lived through. This is what I felt. This is what I know. That voice is your compass now. That voice is your anchor. And that voice will save you every single time you start to spiral back into doubt. Because healing doesn't mean you'll never hear the noise again. It means you'll recognize it for what it is, noise. It means you'll stop chasing their approval and start honoring your own experience. That's truth, and truth is your greatest weapon against manipulation. The beauty of truth is that it doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't need to fight. It just is. And the moment you start living from that place, that quiet certainty, you become dangerous to people who built their identity on controlling yours. That's why they panic when you stop arguing, when you stop explaining, when you stop showing up to defend yourself, because it means you've shifted from survival to sovereignty, and they can't reach you there. You'll see it in how they react, the smears, the sudden attempts to pull you back in. The guilt, the pity, the charm, it's all designed to hook you because they feel the shift, they feel the loss of leverage, and they'll do anything to get it back. But if you stay in your truth, if you don't flinch, don't explain, don't chase, they lose. Not because you beat them at their game, but because you stopped playing, and that's the real win. Not revenge, not retaliation, just peace, just truth. And let me tell you something powerful. The truth doesn't just protect you from them, it attracts everything they were keeping you from. Real connection, real joy, real peace, real love. When you're no longer afraid of what they think, when you're no longer tethered to their version of you, you start showing up differently. You stand taller. You speak clearer. You choose better. And that magnetic shift, that's your healing in motion. That's your truth doing its work. You don't have to broadcast it. You don't have to scream it from the rooftops. You just have to live it. Let it guide your choices. Let it shape your boundaries. Let it filter who gets access to you now. Because once you've stood in your truth, not everyone qualifies anymore. Not everyone deserves the new version of you. Especially not the people who taught you to question yourself in the first place. So if you're scared to say it anyway. If you're scared to own it anyway. Even if your voice shakes. Even if your hands tremble. Even if no one claps, say it, own it, live it, because when you stand in truth, you don't just heal, you rise, and when you rise, the people who once controlled you no longer recognize you. That's not your problem. That's your power. You are not who they said you were. You are not the story they told. You are not their puppet, their project, their pawn. You are a whole person, capable, clear, free, and the moment you claimed your truth, they lost. Forever.